Hello and welcome to another edition of our Creative Camera Club. This month's subject is double exposure. So I'm going to take you through how to do a simple but very effective piece of art using two or even more photos. We're just going to use two. I've chose this Weeping Trees image. I think it's really nice. And I've gotten myself a female model image, which I just got off the internet. What I'm thinking of is you can use this with an animal or another person, so you can take a picture of somebody or take a picture of yourself using the timer on a camera or something, or get somebody to take a picture of yourself just for this subject picture. Like this model here, it's always best if you have it side on, so you have this profile on the face. If you do it face on, it just kind of doesn't work properly because of smooth edges on the side, so you'd have the smooth hair on either side of your head, and only your ears are going to be an outcrop. So it makes a more interesting photo if it's in this kind of positioning either side, because we could change this around by flipping it, so either side, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do Control Z to undo what I just did, because I kind of like it on this side. So what I'm going to do first is cut out the model. Even though they're on a very light background and it's not very distracting, I still want to show you how you were to cut out somebody. So what we're going to do is select the quick selection tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the clicker and start dragging, not letting go of the dragger. And as you can see, it starts to jump and find out where the edges are. It's very simple on this because the background, as we said, is not much going on in it, so it's easy for it to kind of select. So it's going to go down here. Now you'll notice then it quickly jumped and selected all this. Now what I'm going to do is I'll hold down the Alt key, and it will change. If you look inside that circle, you've got a plus, which is the selection, so plussing the selection. If I hold down the Alt key, it goes to negative. So I'm just going to click in here and select that. Then I'm going to, on the brackets keys, I'm going to press the left bracket to decrease. If I press the right bracket, it increases. I'm going to decrease that and then hold Alt again and just deselect that, and that's quite a good selection we've got of our subject. Then I'm going to go to Select and Mask up here. Right, whilst we're in here, we're going to select this tool here, which is Refine Edge Brush Tool. And again, using the brackets keys, we're going to adjust the size. I think that's enough size. And then I'm going to click and drag. And what this does is it's going to do the fine edges. So by zooming in, by holding Control and plus, and then holding space until you get the hand, I can then drag this. So you see all this stray hair here. We're going to see if we can get a little bit more of this in the selection, and it just makes it a little bit more realistic as opposed to having a real crisp cut line, and it looks just a little bit artificial. So by zooming out, I'm holding down Control and the minus sign. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just gently select and drag that over, just not holding it down and dragging a long way, just little bits. And what I do is I make sure that plus sign, so if I did it there, it's not going to work too well, so I like to have it over just a little bit. What that's doing is it's just grabbing all those little edges, little stray hairs, and it's adding them to the selection just for a little bit more realism. So with the brackets key, I'm going to decrease, and there we go. We don't need to do it. These are such smooth lines that you don't need to do it. One point I would do would be around the eyelash here, and as you can see there, that went darker, so that was actually ended up being in the selection. Okay, so I'm going to go Control 0, and that'll just put it to the original size. Then, as I'm going to have it all selected, I'm going to go down to Output, and in here I'm going to go to new layer with layer mask, and then I'm going to go OK. So what that's done now is this is the original image. I'm going to drag this down into a folder, close that up. Let's put, I always like to name my layers so I know where I'm going. So that's the model. So what we've done here is, you can see in this image here, it's a little thumbnail, but you can still see the backgrounds there. So what I've done is I put a layer mask on, and everything that's black is actually excluded. That's why all this is checkerboard. That means that it's transparent at the moment. And then whatever's in white is what's in focus. So that's how that's kind of done. If I disable this layer mask, if I disable this layer mask, you can see it goes back in and it adds the background back, and then we've still got it here. So I'm just going to enable that again, and it's cut it all out. Now if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that it's actually brought in some of the hairs. That was why we did the refine edge tool. Can you see it's a lot more natural, and it's even cut out all these little bits in here. And as I said, it's okay to have smooth lines when we're talking about going along like profiles like this, and especially eyelashes and stuff like that. You know, otherwise we would have had a real crisp line and it just wouldn't look as natural, especially if somebody zoomed in. They could potentially tell. It could have done a little bit of a better job here, but I think it's just a little bit of whispery stuff, so I think it's going to be fine. Again, we could have done a little bit in here, and I think we can go back in and do a little bit of that. I think just a little bit there, just to cut that out. And as you can see, get rid of that. So now this is the only one we've got. We can see some of the checkerboard underneath. So again, it makes it look, when we finish the design, it will look just at that little bit more natural, as opposed to having like that would have a block color in there, or you know, a solid cut line against an edge. It's not quite natural. You see that? So that's how you cut something out. So next, we're going to quite simply, well actually I think we're going to adjust this image slightly. I want to bring out a bit more contrast in the model, and so what I'm going to do is we're going to go to filter, and a camera raw filter. I'll bring up this menu box here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to push the highlights down slightly, give a bit more skin color, and boost. What's this going to do is we're going to lighten up where all the shadows are. Now if we go too much, you can see that this was a JPEG, so there's not much data in here, so it was just all black, so it doesn't quite know what to do. So we're just going to lift it up a little bit, and as you can see by the side by side there, we've actually got more detail appearing in the hair, and although we've got some darks in the eye, it's lightened up the whole area around here, so that's quite nice. I'm going to push the whites up a little bit. This is something that you don't normally do with a developing photograph, but I want to have a little bit of those whites going up, and just pushing up the blacks a little bit as well. So it's just a little bit more of a clean image. Maybe I'll just boost the clarity just a tiny bit. And I think that's, yep, I think that's looking good. So I'm going to press OK, and those changes have taken effect on here now. So I'm going to go to the other picture. I'm going to go to the move tool, and I'm just going to click and then just drag it and drop it onto here. As you can see, the frame of the actual photograph is different to the one we've imported, but that's not a problem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change on the layer for the trees. We're going to go to screen, so we can see what's underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust, I'll turn the opacity down a little bit as well. So I'm going to adjust this image till I'm happy with how the image on top is going to be sitting upon this, the one underneath. So I think that's quite nice. We have these the bark of the wood going across the trees, on the trees there, going across the head. We got some colouring here, and then down the ponytail we've kind of got this mixture of the branches and the leaves, and I think that is pretty good. Right then, the next step is to get rid of all of this content that's around here and not on the model. So I'm going to hide this layer by clicking the eye and then selecting the model. Let's name this for nature. So I select the model, and I'm going to go and click our old reliable quick selection tool, and by using the right bracket, increase the size, and then go around the outside this time, not on the inside like we were just selecting the model in the first place, and then shrink down and select back in here. Looks pretty good. Now something you should be aware of up here, we've got there's 3 different types. I've selected this one, which is plus, which means I can actually create additional selections without cancelling. This one here would just be I could only have one selection at a time. This allows me to have multiples. I think that's to delete, subtract from selection, but we want to add to selection. So you can see these marching ants. All this is selected here. I'm just going to quickly select this as well, and as you can see, that's created a brand new selection there and hasn't wiped out all the others. So yeah, Control 0 puts you back into that space again. Okay, so now we've got all of this selected. We're going to select our nature picture again and make that visible, and you can see that that selection that we did here is still visible, and now we're on this one. So anything that we do on this layer is going to that selection is going to appear on this selection. So with the nature layer, I'm going to click this down here, which is the create a layer mask, and that hasn't gone to plan, but never mind. With this selected, this, so we had this selected when we put the layer mask on. This is now selected because it's got the brackets around. I'm going to do Control and I, and what that's done is it's inverted the selection. So now we have exactly what we wanted, which is what was on the outside of the model is now disappeared, and what's on the inside is now showing through. What's interesting about layer masks is it's non-destructive. So I could have pressed delete and it would have deleted that and had the same effect as what we see now. However, if I'd made a mistake, and let's say I put the white, now remember, white reveals, black conceals. That's the rule with regards to masking. So if I go to a brush tool, just a harsh brush, quite big, and here remember, white reveals, black conceals. So I've got white in my paintbrush, and if I start brushing, we can bring all this back. Whereas if I deleted it, it's gone and gone forever. So again, if I put black back on, I start painting, because you can see here where I've painted white on the side there, outside of the selection, and I've started painting black again, and well, there we go. It's all disappearing. So that's the beauty of layer masks. They're phenomenal, and it's non-destructive. But we've got a bit of work to do. So I'm going to put the soft brush. So that's a very harsh line. That's a soft line. It's kind of like a gradient on. And I'm going to move the flow down to about 20%. That's how much pressure, if you like, if you had like a felt tip pen or a biro or something like that, and the harder you press it, the more ink will come out. So we don't want a lot to come out. And what I'm going to do is with the black, so we're going to conceal. There's a bit of increase the size of the bracket key again, and we're going to gently, as you can see, that line, that harsh line, is starting to disappear. I'm having to go over it multiple times because we've only got 20% flow. We don't want to go too drastically because it would create a line, and then we don't want that. So we don't want a line there from the image. We also don't want a line there from having too harsh a brush or flow of ink. And as you can see here, it's quite hard to see, but it's kind of like a soft edge, whereas that up here around the head is really crisp line. Down here it's kind of soft, and that's from the gradient on the brush. So we're just wiping that away. So straight away you can see that this is this really nice blending effect in trying to get rid of any kind of lines or anything that you don't quite want in the image. Right there, we will touch up the head and stuff in a minute. Well, that's going pretty well so far. Kind of like the flow of the hair, you know, coming down here. We've got all these light greens and going into like a turquoise. You can't really tell that that's a river. This part here, but I don't think it really matters. It's just given a really nice cool contrast. So I'm going to zoom in up here. Now personally I want to actually bring some detail back to the face, not obscure it entirely, so I want to actually have the eye quite visible. So I've done several clicks then, several clicks in that area to illuminate the eye and definitely the lips, I feel. So, but if we just do some clicking here, we're just putting very light shades of black, and it's just showing through what's underneath just a little bit. So we've still got some texture there, but I really want those red lips to be prevalent, and we might actually even adjust them so that they're even more red to give something like make the image pop a little bit. Sometimes this is done and they actually turn the model into a black and white photograph, and then the other exposure that they bring in on top is going to be color. This photo, there is skin tone, and there is some color here, but I felt that it was muted enough that it wasn't going to be distracting. And in fact, as I was just talking about, I wanted the lips to be quite distracting in that they draw you in, and so you can definitely see the face properly. Now again, I'm just holding down the spacebar key, and as you get the little hand, you can just click and drag freely around. As you can see along this is quite a harsh line, so we may have to go in and soften it slightly, but the rest I feel is okay. I think I'd like to soften this line here a little bit, so I'm going to make this quite small and then just gently kind of blend that in slightly, not get rid of it entirely, just get rid of that harsh line that was there. And that's, I kind of like that line there. I think we've gone a bit too much over here, so if I swap back to the white, remember white reveals, so I can paint back in over here to bring back what's on top again. Okay, just a couple more dabs. Oh yeah, that's good. On here. This is a very harsh line. I don't mind them harsh here because of the dark hair, it's shown up more, whereas her skin tone back down here is quite light. So I should have perhaps have made her, instead of turning the whites up, I should have perhaps turned them down. But it's all about preference on what you feel, what you like. I'm not quite sure about what I want to do over here, so I'm just going to have a bit of a muck around. Remember, because we're using a layer mask, we can delete and then bring back. But I feel that we almost need to bring in a bit more detail in this area for the jawline. So what I've done there is, I've just kind of brought a bit of the photograph underneath through, because there would be shadow here underneath the chin anyway, and she's facing away from the sun, which is coming in on this side. There's a very strong line here, and I want to see if I can do something about it. I'm not quite liking that one there, so just with black, just a couple of dabs, maybe actually get rid of that there. Soften the lines slightly. Brought a bit of human back to her, and maybe over the eyebrow, because it just doesn't quite look right. There's these human features help draw the eye of the observer in to look at the art. So I want to make her a little bit more human like that. Okay. I would have actually liked to have had this all the way up here really, but I think it is a good balance of skin, real skin, and then what we've placed over her. But it is up to you. I mean, we could take out all of this, just holding down. Just blend this so that's from the cheekbones, so all of this area is kind of blended in. And I'm not sure if I like that or not. It's about playing. Okay, I'm putting a bit back in, so it just kind of gradients slightly and get some color up here, because I did like this color up here, but it's not so very prevalent that it looked like maybe a goatee. Maybe that's what it was distracting me. Let's get rid of this slightly, so it's not, as I say, it's not so much like a goatee beard, but there is texture there. There is moss or something growing. I think that's kind of pretty cool. Okay, so now let's get rid of that part there. I think definitely there. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do is just go around the edge slightly and just give that a bit of contrast, I suppose. a bit of shading, and what that would do is it'll help hide that coarse line which is drawing my eye in and making it look as if it's not natural. A little bit in there. So these are just little clicks. I'm not dragging too far. And to my eye that looks a lot better, but we haven't finished on the background yet. Just around the hair. You'll always find that the hair is the most distracting part of any cutout image, and you can only do so much. Go for the hard edge there to really... Oh, okay. Scrap that. Okay. I kind of like this, but I'm not sure if I should get rid of this and create this kind of oval here, so it looks like the shoulder blades are with the image underneath, but the upper back isn't. So again, this is it's just trial and error. You know, what looks good to your eye. This is your artwork. There is no right and wrong, really. Let's smooth that out. I think I kind of like that better, because we can see the spine on the model there, so it makes it look just that little bit more natural. I think I was getting confused with the colours then. No, that's definitely wiping it out. There wasn't much coming through, so I was like, oh, maybe I've got it. There we go. Let's move that back down there. So we've got that hard edge appearing there again, so let's just get that out. Just add a little bit more in there. So yeah, so it kind of sweeps in up here, and then kind of goes off over there. And we still have some of the detail in the hair up here, which is great. So I think I'd like to, as I said, emphasize this area here. There are several ways we can do this. I'm just trying to think of the best way, really. I think I'm going to use another selection tool, the polygonal lasso, one of my favorites, but it draws straight lines, so you actually have to click quite close to your clicky areas, so that it doesn't look as if you've got straight lines. Just going to select all of her lips there, and then I'm going to do hue and saturation or vibrance. Let's try vibrance. Well, those are red lips, and by turning the vibrance right down, you go to black and white. It totally desaturates. So I think, well, if that's normal, let's pump it up just a little bit. So whenever I hit a slide, I always go one way first, and then dramatically, so you can see Is it the right slider, or is it having the right effect that you want? So I'm turning that up. So I don't want that. Just a nice boost. Let me do that. And I think, wow, yes, that's having the effect that I was looking for. So we've boosted it in vibrance and saturation quite a bit. And I think that is, oh, let's put this. Red lips. Always annotate your layers, otherwise if you come back to it you won't remember, and you'll be turning things on and off trying to work out what they're doing. So on the face of it, you know, you can keep on adjusting and maybe bring out more. You know, if we clicked on the model again here and went to filter and the raw camera raw filter, it will show us what the image was, or what the image is without, because it's not looking at both layers, it's looking at that one layer, and that one layer doesn't have the layer that we put on over the top. And you can again you know, mess around with the exposure, so we could decrease the exposure level on the model, and then as I predicted, it's by having the darker skin tone, the photo or the exposure on top became more apparent, as you can see them two there. So I think I slightly wrongly exposed to begin with. So if we go back in there and maybe turn the whites slightly down, that's not going to affect it as much as the exposure. And just add a little bit more in the shadows, just a little bit more in the blacks, and let's see that it is a bit more showing. Yeah, I think I prefer the slightly darker, and it's made more detail come out in here. One of the final things that we could do is we could again, let's drag another version of this onto the image, and let's actually, we want it to be, I'm just going to press delete, we want it to be the same, in the same position as the other one, as opposed to trying to match it up. So let's count this as the this is the nature copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, delete the layer mask on that, and I'm going to drag this all the way underneath the model, and then I'm going to put a blur on it. So I'm going to go up to filter, and let's go to blur, Gaussian blur, and 200 looks good. Okay, then I'm going to put another layer underneath that. I'm going to go to our paint pot tool and then just put white. That didn't do what I wanted it to do. Oh, that's because that's on screen, that's why. So we want this layer here to be on normal. Okay, so that's helping us see as well what's... looks like she's got a goatee beard, we don't want that. We got this nice fading up into this. So let's use this clone tool, increase it quite big. I'm going to press Alt, because we got this nature copy, so there is a photo underneath here, so I'm going to press Alt, and it's going to go to like this target, and I'm going to go click, and then what that's going to do is it's going to copy what is where where that little crosshair is, and it's going to copy it below. That's not working. Let's quit that. So we're going to go back on, let's go back to the nature, and with this tool let's hide Okay, so there you have our piece of art. It's relatively a quick process. I appreciate that this tutorial is quite long, but I'm trying to explain things and my thought process as we're going along. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I really look forward to seeing the works that you're going to be putting forward in the next month. As I said initially, you don't have to have a picture of a person. You can also do it on an animal, but I would suggest that it's of a living being, as opposed to a brick wall or something like that. That's just way too easy. So yes, you can. I will allow someone to take a picture of you, but you must take a picture of whatever you're going to be overlaying on top of the image. So I would like both photos to be taken by you in the next couple of weeks, as opposed to just going on Google and searching. Let me know if you're struggling to find an image or you're not quite getting the right inspiration, and maybe I'll put up some resources that everyone can use to make it a little bit more fair. So yeah, thanks very much. Bye bye.